So now I'm holding the proposition for the Plan of Action 2017 of the board. If you look at the summary here in the first page, the first thing that you're going to see is that we're only proposing 4 projects for the Plan of Action next year. The reason, to put it shortly, is that the role of the Plan of Action, as I said in the introduction video, is to create some kind of a discrete change in the society or in SUL or in the lives of students. And how we see it is that the fewer projects we have, the more resources we are going to be able to direct at those projects, which means that we are going to be able to create a larger change. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for projects that are going to have a lasting impact and that are going to actually be meaningful for the lives of students in the future. We have 4 projects, which means, for instance, that each member of the board of SUL, if we have the size of the board that's the same as now, which is 7 people, so each member of the board is not going to have a project of their own, and that's also a very conscious decision. So instead of each member of the board having their own responsibility projects, we want to put together teams that are going to be compiled of several different traditional sectors of SUL. So we might have 2 members of the board and 2 employees, for instance, or 3 employees working on one project as a team and looking at the different aspects of that project, and each with their own kind of areas of responsibility related to that project. So that's the kind of idea behind the very kind of concise and short plan of action that we've put together here. The other idea behind this is that the way that we approached finding the themes for these projects was identifying trends and pressures to change that are facing students and facing student unions and SUL next year and also in the next couple of years. So we want to have projects that are actually going to be useful for us if we look into the future and create some kind of new competencies or new kinds of areas of strength that we can then utilize in the coming years to be like a better functioning movement. The first project that we're introducing here is, it's called in English, I have the translation here, More Reasons to Stay. Give international students work, use their competencies, and upturn Finland. And as you might notice, this is directly related to one of the projects that we have in the plan of action for this year. So last fall in the General Assembly, the meeting decided that we were going to have a 2-year project working on the employability and the employment of international students. And so this is like part 2 of that project. This year what we've been doing is actually quite a bit. So first of all, we started the spring by ordering a study done by Otus on the employment of international students and how the situation is at the moment. We've done a lot of communication related to that issue, and we also have been putting together international students and employers via this network called Me2We, which is a kind of service provider for employing people. What we're going to do at the end of the year now is put together kind of 5 steps to employing international students, and from 3 different perspectives. First of all, from the perspective of an international student. Second of all, the university, and third of all, the employer. So kind of like 5 recommendations for each of these groups that will help international students get employed. Next year, our idea with this project here is to move the focus into a more of an advocacy direction. So now we've been doing quite a kind of communicational and kind of operational approach to the project. And next year we want to move more towards advocacy, which would mean, for instance, advocating like banking services and like basic needs like that to be easily reachable by students, but also, for instance, career services and the offering of language courses for international students, and make sure that those are sufficient. The second project that we're proposing is called A Common University Students Movement. And this has a really interesting background. If you look at the last couple of years, we've been seeing a trend where student unions and all kinds of student associations, as well as SUL to some extent, have seen a trend where like involvement of students in volunteer work, for instance, has been declining. There's been like increased pressure for students related to their like welfare, for instance, and also related to the times that you're allowed to study. And we're encouraged to study at an ever-quickening pace at the moment, and there's quite a lot of pressure, which means the feeling of less time to take part in extracurricular activities and you know, student democracy and stuff like that. At the age of social media and along with the developments of the last couple of years, also the ways that students and young people in general take part in society and want to make an influence on society have changed radically. So it's no longer necessarily needed to take part in some kind of formal organizations or actors, but you can have a far more diverse way of taking part. And this is a trend that we as a student movement need to also look at and find ways to kind of reach our students in the change that like in the changed environment. We need to find ways for students to take part that might be vastly different from the ways that students have taken part previously. Our idea in 2017 is to put our smart heads together. So basically create an atmosphere where student unions and SUL are going to be highly cooperative and looking at the best practices that are in place in all of our own organizations. We're also going to be looking at for instance, the Scouts in Finland and other organizations that which have actually managed to like pull through a transformation in the last couple of years in regard to how they take people and the youth into account. Yeah, we're going to be doing a lot of concrete stuff related to like service design and the services that we at SUL and you guys at student unions provide to students and pooling our resources to pull these efforts through. If this project is successful, at the end of next year, we're going to have new ways for students to take part. We're going to have a better understanding of what students actually need and want from the student unions and the student movement as a whole. And in the longer term, for instance, we're going to see the rates of people voting in council elections going up, for example. The third project that we're proposing is called A Brighter Future for Learning. And this has a background in two different directions. First of all, in the last couple of years, we've completed a series of quite successful projects. For instance, Opiskelukyky, which was related to like the studying well-being of students and the factors that are related to that. We also had Tulevaisuuden yliopisto, the future university, which was looking at what university education should be like in the future. Last year we had Maisteri 2.0, which had a similar type of goal compared to the University of the Future. Let's say that one of the difficulties and the challenges that we faced is how to put the great results of these projects into use in our kind of daily advocacy work, and how to find a place for them in the daily operations of SUL and the student unions, of course, as well. So that's going to be one kind of background trend here. So we're doing a kind of compilation project, which is kind of building an enhanced understanding of learning and education of the future based on these projects that we've completed before. The other background influencer here is that Finland is turning 100 years next year, the independent Finland. And related to that, SUL is organizing a huge international learning event that's called DARE. And this is going to be really cool, and we've already got a lot of people in motion preparing that. But we want to also direct some resources of SUL towards actually finding the links between DARE and that international learning event and the advocacy work of SUL. Like how can we feed the correct kind of signals both ways, and how can we as SUL utilize this learning event to the advantage of university students and our advocacy work also in SUL. So these two trends behind this project and like really something that I think I'm looking forward to seeing like how it goes. The fourth and final project here on the list is called Better Generation Politics for Future Generations in the upcoming parliamentary elections. The idea here is that in the current societal discussion atmosphere in Finland, we don't really have the tools to evaluate the effects of political decisions that are made on different generations. And for us, of course, the concern is especially that we don't really have the tools to discuss the effects of policy measures on the young generation, on our generation. There's really big discussions coming up about this. For instance, related to pensions, which there's like a huge discussion bubbling under the surface in the parliament, and sometimes also bubbling over the surface. It's coming up in the party meeting of the Social Democrats next year. This is a topic that's going to be active at least until the parliamentary elections in 2019, and there's been also speculation that this might be the #1 theme of those elections. Basically, how we're foreseeing the future is that if we want to take part in this discussion, and we want also the voice of the youth to be heard, we have to have the proper tools to take part in this discussion. And the idea of this project is to create those tools. So we're going to collaborate with some other organizations to put together a metric for evaluating the effects, the generational effects of policy measures, for instance, cuts in education, changes made in welfare, and so on. That's about it. As I said in the introduction video, when you put together your comments for this plan of action, the #1 thing that you want to be looking at is the themes. So this table of contents might even be the most useful page when looking at your comments. Because what you want to think about is whether or not this collection of 4 projects is the best possible compilation that is going to be answering to those trends that face students, students' unions, and SYL in the future. We think it's a pretty, let's say, harmonic set. There's some stuff that is related to changing the societal discussion. There's some stuff that's related to strengthening our own capabilities in taking part in the learning discussion, for instance. There's stuff that's related to actually, smoothing our own operations and making the student movement work more efficiently. So we see that's why we've put together this package here. But that's the question that I would really encourage you guys to ask yourself, if our decision here and our reasoning here has been correct, or whether or not there should be some other selection of themes in this plan of action next year.